They say you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And for the most part, that's correct. But what about technology? I think you're going to find these next two stories absolutely incredible because technology is literally out of the tube these days. And some people would say it's even getting better. Those are the talking points for today's video. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, it's Eric from the Airing of Grievances. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for ours. Rob is not with us today, but that's all right. I brought not one, but two stories out of this week's headlines, and I wanted to share them with you because they're both related to technology. One is going to change the way that we drive, period. And the other is going to increase the opportunity for insurance to monitor closely your behavior so that they can charge you accordingly. All right, our first story comes out of Repair-Driven News. Teresa Moss wrote an article on October 8th about driver alcohol detection system that is ready for automakers after nearly a decade of research. The article says, the Automotive Coalition for Traffic Safety, or ACTS, President and CEO Rob Strasburger recently demonstrated driver alcohol detection system for safety. That's DADSS, otherwise referred to as DADSS, which uses sensors to determine a driver's blood alcohol concentration. That sounds like technology that we already have today, and it is to a degree. However, there's been some heavy-duty research going on in ways to make it so that it's not as invasive. For instance, if you know somebody who has gotten in trouble for driving under the influence of alcohol, you may know that sometimes the courts allow them to drive sober as long as they blow into a breathalyzer, and it's kind of a contraption they hook up to the car. It's a lot, but you have to blow in a number of seconds to turn the ignition on. And that system's been around for a very long time, but the technology that we're talking about today, as it was announced in the Detroit News and reported again here on the Repair-Driven News, is different than that, and it's not specific to somebody who has already been in trouble. It is currently being touted as an option, and I say currently because the skepticism on my side says that this will eventually take over. Either that or autonomous driving, that is, self-driving vehicles, will take over. One of the two, maybe a combination of both. It's the future. Who knows? But here's what the article says. It says that the technology comes as new optimism is stirring, centered around a 2021 congressional directive to mandate anti-drunk driving technology in vehicles. And we don't want drunk drivers on the road. I think that's safe to say. I think drunk drivers put other people's lives as well as their own lives at risk. We've seen story after story. In fact, I could name probably 5 or 10 of my close associates that have been victimized one way or the other, including and up to the point of death in drunk driving accidents. So I am enthusiastic about the thought behind the technology. And I don't know where I land, to be honest with you, as it relates to the implementation of this technology. I am simply here to report the news. I do have a video that I will be showing snippets of, and I'll provide the link to the complete video down below. And this is put out by the DADSS research. Again, that's the Driver Alcohol Detection System for Safety, the people who are putting this technology out. But there's two versions of the technology. So let's just say that somebody gets into the car, closes the door. This DADSS technology is installed on the car, and they are just breathing normal in the cabin. Right? They don't have to put their lips around a tube and blow for 3 seconds. None of that. Get in the car, close the door, and just in the process of breathing in the cabin, there are sensors located near the dash or the steering column of the car that pick up and detect the blood alcohol level of the carbon dioxide that we put out when we breathe. And according to the article here, it says that there's a light beam. I am not a scientist. This is not going to sound all that scientific, but basically light penetrates carbon dioxide differently than it does carbon dioxide that is laced with alcohol. That alcohol causes a reflective process, triggering the inability to turn on your vehicle. Now that's interesting, and one could say that it is probably going to be helpful to keep alcohol-induced people off of the road. The state level for most states in the United States, the legal limit, if you will, is 0.08. They will measure it according to that and against that. The other technology that's being employed is one of sending a light beam through the skin of your finger. So on the start or the ignition button, you push your finger up to the ignition button and a ray of light shoots out and comes back with information about your blood alcohol level. And again, I think that's remarkable. It's really interesting. Now, there was one little twist to the story that I caught. They didn't make a big deal out of it, but it involved if somebody under the age of 21 gets into the car and tries to start the vehicle and they have any blood alcohol level at all, that will disable the vehicle entirely. Now, the question that popped into my head was, how do they ascertain whether or not the driver is 21 or younger? And I don't know the answer to that, but I will say that it's a very interesting thing. And my assumption is I surmise that they are going to require profiles for drivers. And that sounds like a way that you could solve that issue. For instance, if you have a teenage driver in the household, you could program a profile for that person, but one way or another, they will determine, the car will determine, the technology will determine whether or not that person is of the appropriate weight to be older than 21. I don't know how it works, but it does raise concerns for the data information handling and whatnot. Now, that's the story about this technology. I think it's interesting. I think it's, I stand on the side of keeping drunk drivers off of the road. I think that's going to be interesting and important. I think it's going to change dang near everything, because we all know that there are a number of people, a large percentage, let's say, of adults who would probably have a cocktail and then get in the car and drive. And they may be shocked to discover that 0.08 comes faster than they expect. Because I think, and this is just me, Eric, but I think that there are a number of people who drive over the legal limit, but who manage to get home safely. So that's something to keep our eyes on. And again, I'll put the link to the article down below so that you can check it out. Our second article, also from Repair Driven News, also written by Teresa Moss in the first week of October, talks about State Farm introducing collision detection in its mobile app. Now, that's an interesting thing, because in many cases, we know that State Farm and other insurers have put a heavy push towards people using their apps to file a claim, to make life easier for them as it relates to managing their insurance policies. And in many cases, they can even, they promise to give some sort of a discount. I don't know if that's the case for State Farm or not, but I've heard that many insurers will say, if you install the app and then drive the car responsibly, you're going to be able to get better insurance rates if you are responsible with your driving. I don't know if that ever plays out. I don't know how it works. I'm just saying that's kind of what I've heard. But in this particular case, they have introduced collision detection in the mobile app. And it says when the accident assistance program detects a collision, it immediately initiates contact with emergency services and provides an exact location via GPS technology, according to the State Farm press release. Again, not super new technology. OnStar with General Motors has been around for a long time. And while not in the phone app, certainly accounted for and did these kinds of things if a collision were detected. The interesting discussion that ensues with this technology, and one that we have raised concern over in the past, is the handling of all of the telematics and the detailed information that is now specifically tracking you. And it tracks you wherever you go, 24/7. It's if you've got the app installed and the app is, and I could be wrong, there might be some way to turn off the telematics if you're not driving. But once you are driving, it's going to follow you. It's going to report on you. It's going to do all the things, tell the whole story. And there's two things that are really happening here, in my opinion. I think the first thing is it is Big Brother, in this case State Farm, but the insurer is watching your every move, not just watching it, but being there with you so that it has a record of your every move and can adjust your rates to match whatever driving style you present. And for those of us who are older and might not have the lead foot that we had when in our 20s, that might be something that's a great idea, at least in concept. But if you think about it, you might discover that there might be an invasion of privacy going on there, because anything that you can and do will be used against you. That's my interpretation of this. And then, of course, the other side of it is all of this information, all the data that's being collected about you. Historically, if breaches of security or if contracts that are made behind the scenes with an insurer and other data brokers takes place, that's going to affect your privacy, your security, and I think that says it all, privacy and security. So keeping our eye on this situation, it says here, State Farm Vice President of Property and Casualty Claims, Jeff Legner, says, driving-related risks are constantly changing, presenting greater challenges for drivers. We're committed to providing a mobile app with innovative solutions and robust support options to complement our agents and ensure we are there when our customers need us most. That sounds very magnanimous. Forgive me if I'm a little bit skeptical. It also sounds a lot like Big Brother, and we're there to use this information in an effort to deny more claims and deny the things that are owed, which I don't think that's a huge stretch. If you follow any one of the some 240, 50 of our videos, you can see a pattern of insurers denying various elements of claims. And why? Because they don't want to. Well, now they have the information that they are going to lean heavily into to say, we're not going to cover that or whatever. The other thing is the telematics. Yes, it's talking about collision, but beyond the collision, the telematics that are collected talk about acceleration. They talk about deceleration. They talk about any sudden moves, any sudden turns. And in many cases in real life driving, it doesn't tell the whole story, because I might have to swerve into the next lane and decelerate as fast as possible so that I can accelerate into the next lane, because the person in front of me might have slowed down and I didn't anticipate that, right? And it doesn't mean that I was tailgating. It means that they hit their brakes and I did something evasive to avoid a collision. There's a lot of question marks that go on with this kind of stuff. And again, we're going to see what happens with it. The article goes on to say that one of the dissenters of this kind of technology, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, filed a lawsuit against Allstate and its subsidiary, Arity, for allegedly unlawfully collecting, using, and selling data about the location and movement of various Texans' cell phones through secretly embedded software in their mobile apps. I don't know whether or not there's a connection there to the secretly embedded software. I don't know if that's the case for this particular situation with State Farm. I just know this. There's a concern about the dissemination of a lot of data that is tracking you wherever you go. And so these two things in the news this week are the stories that I wanted to bring to you. I have my own opinions. You can probably guess where those go? This is the technology that is affecting the collision industry and the automotive industry at large. And I felt like it'd be something that we could at least talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below and see what you're thinking as it relates to these two things. Thank you for taking time today. I wish you the very, very best weekend or whenever you're watching this. I'm Eric Raymer. And again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.